What's happening? Welcome to episode number 2 of Arring It Out. I am your host, Jamie Arrington. If you've never listened to our show before, basically, this is a weekly sports podcast. We're going to be talking to athletes, entertainers, other in the business about their journey, what they've been through, and how they got to where they are. Last week's episode with Roy Jones Jr. was amazing. We reached 13 states and 14 different countries. London to Moscow, Rio de Janeiro to Helsinki. Got some play on that one. So very cool. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. This one is going to be a little different. You know, I'm going to try to diversify with my guests every week, take you into different journeys, different walks of life, different perspectives. This guy had a big impact on my life and about 8 years of what I would end up doing with my life. I met him when I was the mascot at Jones Junior College back in 1998. He was still at Alabama. He was the mascot for the Crimson Tide, Big Al. He stayed that way my first year at Southern Miss. He was a guy that won the UCA College Mascot National Championship. He's got some amazing stories, and he's going to share them with you here today. So please welcome my guest on episode number 2, former Big Al from the University of Alabama, Shane Sharpe. One of the most famous mascots in college sports would be Big Al, the elephant at the University of Alabama. Today we've got one of the men that donned the suit, one of the more successful Big Al's of all time, my good friend, Shane Sharpe. How's it going, Shane?
Man, I'm doing great today, Jamie. How are you doing, sir?
Doing good. Good to catch up with you, man. It's been a while.
It has been a while, but I tell you what, it's easy to keep up with, somebody that's a celebrity like you, man. It's easy just to click on the computer and see all the great things you've got going on.
Oh, that's Facebook propaganda, man. That's all hype.
That's right. That's right. It's
well,
shameless, right? Shameless.
Exactly. You're exactly right. So you were born in Birmingham, Alabama, so you really didn't have a choice of what team you were going to pull for growing up, did you?
Well, there's a choice. You just got to make sure you make the good one. You know, we've got two options here in Alabama. You can, as Coach Bryant said, you can choose Alabama or the Cal College down the street. You got your choice of the two. So I chose Alabama. I thought that seemed like I had a lot of wisdom in that move. Plus, all my family was Alabama fans. I didn't have very many Auburn fans in my family, so it obviously worked out. I grew up just loving the Crimson Tide and, just wishing to be a part of it when I was a little guy. You know, it was always awesome to go to the games and to watch them on TV, and certainly the mystique of Bear Bryant. He said something that was legendary as a little guy growing up, and just hearing all the stories about Coach Bryant, it made you want to be a part. So really cool being a Birmingham boy and getting to go to Alabama.
What were some of your favorite Crimson Tide memories growing up?
Well, no doubt about it. There's a game in 1985 where Alabama beat Auburn, and we beat them with a last-second 53-yard field goal kick that Van Tiffen was the kicker at that time. It's just one of those moments in history that everybody remembers exactly where they were, and that's one of mine that I can vividly remember sitting at my grandfather's house in Birmingham with my family there and watching this kick, and what an awesome play it was, because I don't think Alabama was really supposed to win that game, but Alabama played tough, and here with 1 second to go, hit this big field goal. So that certainly is probably one of my favorite memories. I can remember watching people like Cornelius Bennett when he sacked Steve Berline with Notre Dame, hit him so hard it knocked him out and gave him a concussion. Pretty cool to see things like that. Derek Thomas, just some of the great players that have come and played at Alabama over the years, man. Just awesome to grow up and to see the tradition, the pageantry that is Alabama football, man. It's incredible.
Most people that turn into mascots, they have some kind of an interest in sports, and then at some point that doesn't, whether it's injury or just natural ability, it doesn't work out. When did you start becoming a mascot?
Man, you know what? That's so funny you said that, because I probably fit that scenario perfectly. If I would have been good enough to play sports, I would have been all over them, because I'm as competitive as they come. Just probably didn't have the skill set to match. I probably was maybe best at basketball, But I tried everything, tried playing every sport. But so the way that I got into being a mascot, just by being a normal teenage guy, I'm in class and in high school, and one of the local clubs, the Leo Club in Forestdale, Alabama, I went to minor high school, donated a mascot costume to our high school. We had not had a mascot to that point, and so it was our first time to do it. And so there's a girl in my classroom that was a cheerleader, and the cheerleading coach was trying to figure out, what do we do? Do we have a tryout? Do we just pick somebody? What do we do? And this girl turns to me and says, let's let Shane do it. And I said, do what? She said, let Shane be the mascot. And I said, what do you mean? What do I got to do? And the way she sold me was, she told me that I would need to go to cheerleading practices, and I could go with her. And I would need to go to football games, and again, I could ride with her if I wanted to. And then I would have to go to cheerleading camp, and I could ride with her to cheerleading camp. Well, the first two didn't really get me, but when she mentioned cheerleading camp, I pumped the brakes. I said, wait a minute. There's a thing called cheerleading camp, and that was how she got my attention. And so I decided that I would suit up and be the minor tiger. TD the Tiger was his name. And so from 1990 to 92, I was TD the Tiger at minor high school, because it opened the door for me to go to cheerleading camp.
Now, for the people that out there that don't know, when you go to cheerleading camp, they also have a mascot camp, and that's kind of where you learn the craft. That's
right. So one of the first things they teach you when you go to mascot camp, they teach you how to walk in the character that character has. So if I've got a goofy personality, you have to learn how to walk goofy. And so the coaches there at that cheerleading/mascot camp are teaching you how to really refine that walk and make that mascot look like a character, a real life cartoon character, rather than a kid in a costume. You know, in Orlando, you can imagine that there's a lot of work that goes into suiting up to be Mickey Mouse, so that when kids see Mickey, they believe it's the real Mickey, and they're not just a kid making minimum wage, walking around in a costume. So the same thing happens in high school and in college. When you're in that mascot costume, there is training that takes place to make sure that you look like that character, that you make that character come to life. And so that was what the mascot camp, the cheerleading camp, if you will, was for me, was to go and, number one, define the character for that minor high school tiger, but then also to learn how to develop it and look like that when I was on the field at football games.
There's a certain element of machismo among the fans out there. And coming up when you and I came up, now it's a little different. You've got lawsuits and everything, but everybody wants to see the mascot get in a fight. So
yeah.
What was your first encounter like?
Man, listen, so going back to cheerleading camp, I can remember the Eternal Colonel from Eastern Kentucky was the coach for my first mascot camp that I went to. And the guy was great. I couldn't believe just how good this guy was as a mascot. But there's one thing that he said that sunk into me that I probably never forgot, and it came up in my brain a lot of times throughout the course of my career inside a mascot costume. It was this: whatever you do, don't get into a fight with the other mascot for this reason. You don't know who that person is in the other costume. And he explained the story how he was the Eternal Colonel mascot for Eastern Kentucky, and their big rival is Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers. And they actually were playing on ESPN, and he ends up getting into a fight with the Hilltopper mascot from Western Kentucky, and it didn't go so well for the Eastern Kentucky mascot, and the Hilltopper won the fight. He later finds out that this guy is a wrestler, I guess, for Western Kentucky, and just kind of moonlighted as the Hilltopper mascot. So he had the training, if you will, to win this fight. So thinking about that, you don't know who's in the other costume. You have no idea if they're trained to fight or not. And let me go ahead and tell you, I was not. I'm somebody who has made a living on having the gift of gab and being able to talk. I've talked my way into a lot of situations and out of probably more. And so being in the mascot costume, that weapon is eliminated. So there's not a lot of fight really in me until it comes down to you've got this costume on and you feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof. So let me tell you my first one. So we are playing a high school called Prattville High School, which is one of the largest high schools in Alabama. We're playing them for homecoming. And it was extremely rare that other high schools had a costume mascot. I typically was the only person there. If you know that time at a high school football game, you've had the football team come out on the field. They've warmed up. Once they've warmed up, They go back in the locker room to get that last-minute speech from the coach so that they can come running out on the field and they can win the game, right? The band is getting set up while the team's back in the locker room, and there's about a 5-minute window where really the only thing that's happening is the guy on the microphone is announcing all the sponsors for the game. So that was normally my time to kind of have the field and show off. So what I would normally do, and let me go ahead and say, I love professional wrestling. I still love it, still watch it with my sons now. But I would usually try to get as big as possible stuffed animal of the team that we were playing, their mascot, and take it out to midfield and just drop the elbow on it, give it a splash, whatever I could do to have some fun with it. Really, any wrestling move that I could try to recreate, I would try to do with this stuffed animal mascot. The band got to where they would play with me, so if I'm running to put a splash on this mascot while he's laying on the ground, I would go running and jump, and they would do a drum roll, and then when I would land on the mascot, they would clash the cymbals. So I really had a lot of help in making this look very visual. Well, this particular game, I'm out here, and I'm beating up. And let me go ahead and say, this is homecoming my senior year. So this would be fall of 1991, homecoming. And here the crowd is getting behind me. They're getting real energized. And I'm like, you know what? They have finally bought into what it is I'm doing. They're loving everything that's happening here. So here I am, jumping on this little stuffed animal mascot, beat up, and the crowd's getting louder and louder. And I can't believe the amount of energy the crowd has right now over watching me jump on this stuffed animal. Well, somebody taps me on the shoulder, and I just knew that I had done something to get in trouble, or I was in somebody's way while they were trying to set up something. And I turn around, and here is this huge lion. And this lion has his fist in the air like he's ready to fight. And so all I can think at this point is, don't fight. I had no idea they had a mascot. I don't know who's inside it. The costume was really big. And so, I don't know what's inside there, but it sure wouldn't look good your senior year of homecoming to go out there and get beat up. So I try to back up a little bit and try to, and I really wasn't a tumbler, but I would do some jump tumbling that didn't land to look funny. So I try to tumble, I try to dance, I try to do toe touches, anything I can do to challenge the lion to compete with me rather than fight. But the lion keeps pushing me. He'll shove me. He'll take some steps forward toward being very aggressive. And so the button just got pressed. And so the lion pushed me really good one time, and I hear the crowd give the ooh. And so when they do that, I retaliate with a really good push and follow with a right hook. And when I swing my right hand, I connect with this lion right on the jaw. I mean, I could feel it sink in through the mascot costume head and hit bone, man. And so I kind of back up like, all right, here we go. Well, I back the mascot up. The mascot kind of shakes his head and starts coming forward. And so here we go, and we're going blows with each other, and we're both swinging and pushing. And look, Jamie, you've been inside one of these mascot costumes. It is extremely hard to see anything.
Oh, yeah.
And so here you are. You've got very limited sight. So it's kind of like fighting in the dark because you can't see really what you're hitting very well. So here I am swinging, trying to get the upper hand. Well, lo and behold, I was getting the upper hand. And I was beginning to dominate this lion on the field. I'm beginning to, every punch that I throw is sinking. If I hit in the stomach, it's sinking. If I hit in the face, it's sinking. Any push that I do, the lion is going back a couple feet. And I began to really, for lack of a better term, bully this lion around midfield and in control. So much so, Jamie, that it was getting boring. The fight was getting boring to me because I was dominating the fight. Now, let me go ahead and say, I'm not a fighter. Totally not my personality. But when you've got a crowd of people yelling to do it and to get them, you kind of feel like you can or feel like you've got to because of this Superman cape that is the mascot costume that you're wearing. So I'm out here and just, for the first time ever, dominating a fight, right? And so I decide, what would it look like if I'm in the crowd and start trying to be very entertaining with it? And who's the most entertaining fighter ever? Was Muhammad Ali, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, I heard your podcast on Roy Jones Jr. I got to think that's probably, I got to put him in the mix too. That dude was awesome. So I began to swing my right arm and get it going, kind of like Muhammad Ali would do, to make big circles and then throw a left hook and hit him right in the jaw, dance around a little bit, and just trying to emulate anything that I saw Muhammad Ali do. Well, I rear back and I kick this lion in the stomach. And the lion folds over, and I hear this, "Oh!" And I sat back and I said, this is either a real feminine guy or it's a girl. So I begin to try to back up, right? And so the lion starts coming at me as I start backing up, and I'm trying to keep this lion off of me because I've heard something that let me know that this is completely wrong, what I'm doing. So my cheerleaders pick up on the fact that I've declared victory and I'm trying to walk off. So they come running out, pick me up, and carry me off like in a victory celebration, a victory ride off the field. As I get to the sideline, I have somebody come over probably 10, 15 minutes later. Now I'm being congratulated by all my friends on what a good job I did. That man, you beat that lion up. Way to go. Good job. And so my head is as big as the clouds, man. I'm the man. You know, it's senior year, high school homecoming, and I have just beat up the lion. Our football team got beat 28-0, but I beat the lion. But I have somebody come over and say, you really should go over and apologize to that lion. And I said, no, the lion started. All I did was, I tried to back up and tumble and dance and toe touches, and the lion kept coming with it and wanted to fight, so we fought. Yeah, but you know what? That was a girl over there. You really should go over and apologize to her. So I did not go apologize at that time. So fast forward, I am teaching cheerleading camp in college. This would have been in 1996. I'm teaching UCA high school cheer and mascot camp, and I'm giving my resume to the campers, and I tell them that I was the minor tiger mascot from 90 to 92. I was also the league college mascot in 1993, and which was Sparky the Flame. Did that for 1 year in Cleveland, Tennessee. And now I'm Big Al, the mascot at the University of Alabama. We have a little bit of a break, and I have this girl come up. She says, so you were the minor tiger? And I said, yes. She says, well, so I'm from Prattville. I'm the new Prattville Lion this year. And I said, oh, hey. She said, did you ever get into a fight with the Prattville Lion? I said, I did. She goes, oh, my goodness. Do you know who that was you got in a fight with? No, I have no idea. So she says, so my big sister was a cheerleader, and so I can remember this like it was yesterday. So the little girl that was in the costume, it was her first time to ever be in a mascot costume. And so what was happening was this girl was an 8th grader, a little girl, and not only that, she was a foreign exchange student from Japan. And she was wanting every bit of American culture that she could get. And the goal was, this was the game before their homecoming, which was the following week, and she was going to be introduced to the Prattville audience as the Prattville Lion. And so here I go over and I beat her up. She cried, got out of the costume, did not want to get back in it, wanted to go home, and not home to Prattville, home to Japan, because she hated America. She couldn't believe that she would get beat up like this in this costume. And so anyway, long story short, my first fight I ever got into in a costume was against an 8th grade foreign exchange student from Japan. So I'm really proud of myself, and what a good job that I did there.
Wow, that's an international incident. Yes,
sir. Yes, sir. I'm surprised we didn't go to World War III over it.
Well, tell us, you mentioned your time at Lee College. Tell us about your time there as Sparky the Flame.
I mean, it was really brief. I went to Lee, fell in love with the school first time I ever went up there. Got up there and got selected to be the Flame with a guy named JR. And really, Sparky the Flame showed up for basketball games. That was about the only event that we did there at that time with Sparky the Flame. So I was up there. I was very rowdy and rambunctious in the costume. We had a little bit of a dust up with one of our biggest competitors, or I guess you'd say rivals, King College, and obviously they had a King mascot. And he and I got into a little skirmish at one of the basketball games, but there wasn't a whole lot of action at Sparky the Flame. I was only there for a year. I ran out of money. My parents weren't able to. They weren't in a position financially to pay for me to be in college, so I was doing it all myself. And so any money that I had saved up was spent very quickly going out of state, so paying out-of-state tuition. It's a private school, so paying private school tuition. All the money I had saved was gone quickly, and so I had to come back home and kind of start over, if you will. It obviously ended up being the best thing in the world, blessing for me, but yeah, Sparky the Flame was just a very a very quick turn through the calendar.
Well, how did you get to be Big Al at Alabama?
Man, it's a really cool story. I make it a little long-winded on it. So when I went to Alabama, I was broke. You heard me talking about making my way through Lee College and you're running out of money. So I'm broke as a joke. I'm the guy that was eating Slim Jims for breakfast and lunch and ramen noodles for dinner, and just trying to survive. I mean, working all the time and just trying to figure out how to pay rent and pay for a car and insurance. And I've got to study a little bit too. And probably when I was in college, I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities, if you will, where whatever club we were going to tonight or whatever, so I spent a lot of money just unnecessarily. So I never had a lot of money in my pocket, if you will. And so I saw where they were having they had an advertisement up for Big Al tryouts. And I saw where Big Al, they had a varsity position, had two of those, and had a JV position, had one of those. And the varsity position this time was giving out a full in-state athletic scholarship for tuition. And the JV spot got a $500 semester tuition scholarship. And I saw that, Jamie, and I said, you know what? That would be life-changing for me. If I could get, all the in-state tuition stuff paid for, that would be unbelievable. Plus, no doubt, being involved with the University of Alabama Athletic Department, what a dream come true to just be a part of that. I'd do anything to be a part of it. And so I decided to try out. Now, let me say, growing up an Alabama fan, when I would go to the Alabama games, I would watch Big Al, watch him closely, and loved watching him. But I never envisioned that I would be on that level to where I could be in that costume. That guy looked like it was the best professional mascot ever in the history of mascots, that they must pay that guy $1 million a year because he's so good and so entertaining. Plus, he's at Alabama. So, everything about it to me seemed so larger than life. And so just being able to go and try out for it to me seemed like a major accomplishment, to be honest, just to go sign up and try out. So anyway, I did. I signed up and tried out, had to talk myself into it. I said, I did this in high school for a couple of years. I've done it at another college. Maybe that's the qualification I need to go do this. And so the tryouts have changed throughout the course of the years. Back then, the way it was you had a clinic that you did that they taught you in the clinic. This is how you walk like Big Al. This is how you exaggerate your motions like Big Al. This is how you show emotions like Big Al. This is how you sign a signature like Big Al does, so that any time that you've autographed anything, the Big Al signature looks the same. The whole point was to make Big Al look like the same character from 1979 when he started until today. And so we all had to learn whatever that original walk was that was learned in 79. That's still the same walk today. And we would always say it was a cross between George Jefferson and Santa Claus. So kind of put your mind around that. That was what Big Al was supposed to look like when he's walking. And so you learn all these kind of things, and I did pretty well in that part of it. And they have an interview process, and so I'm in the interview process, and we're talking about Big Al, and they tell me that there's 3 spots available, and we've got 3 guys that are coming back that have been Big Al previously, and typically the guys that make it again. They try to really vet out their selection process. And so as they're telling me all that, obviously it didn't look real good to be the mascot. But they told me, what would you think if we had a 4th position that was an alternate, that was non-scholarship? And I told them that, I didn't think that I could take that. I said, in a real world, if everything was perfect, I would pay you if you let me be in the Big Al costume, just to be involved in Alabama athletics, just to taste it, and be on the field during a game, to have that experience once. I'd pay wherever you wanted me to pay to do that. But at that time, I just wasn't in a position to do it without the scholarship. So I told him, I said, I'll tell you this. You guys have told me about this mascot competition. And Jamie, I know you're aware. I don't know how many of your listeners are aware, but there is a legitimate competition for mascots. It's called the UCA College Mascot Championship, National Championship. And every year there are hundreds of mascots that try to compete for this. And so they told me that Big Al had never qualified for this. And they gave me a set of reasons. They said the reasons that Big Al had never qualified, number one, was the costume was too big. And because the costume was so big, the points that we should be getting for exaggeration, we're not able to get because the costume sucks in all of that exaggeration. So that made it really difficult to compete. They said that the head was so wide that it sat on the edge of your shoulders. And because of that, it limited the movement that you could do with your arms and your shoulders. So that kind of made you less than competitive with some of the other smaller mascot costumes. The hands on Big Al don't have fingers. They're just big socks, really, because they're paws. So you've got cotton down where your hands are. So that makes gripping things much more difficult. So that was another reason why we couldn't be competitive. And the feet were too wide. The feet were so wide that it made Big Al's walk really strange and awkward because of the way that the feet were set up. And so they gave me all these things on why Big Al couldn't. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I know that that alternate spot's not for me. I'd love to take it, but it's not for me. I said, but I'll tell you this. If you give me one of those full scholarship opportunities, here's what I promise you. I promise you that this competition that you guys are talking about that Big Al's never been able to qualify for, I promise you that I'll be the first one to ever qualify to go to that. And not only will I be the first one to ever qualify to go to that, I'll be the first one to win it, and I'll change everything about what you think Big Al can and can't do. And that was met with silence, and then the word, okay, thank you. And that was it. That's how it ended. There was no great answer. No, that's really cool. How would you do it? Nothing. That's it. So I go and so you have this interview, you have a clinic, and then you have a skit that you do. Back then, the tryouts were open, and so you did your skit in front of probably about 1,000 people that were there to watch cheerleading tryouts, and they kind of got to watch Big Al tryouts also in the process. And so you had a skit that you would do in front of them that you made up. And so when I did my skit, I felt like I did as good as I could have done, and I ended up making one of the varsity spots. So when it was my time to go and try to compete for nationals, they have a summer competition at the camps that you go to, and I won the summer competition. So I was one of 75 mascots. You know how they do it. They select a couple of mascots around each summer camp in the country and invite them to try to qualify for nationals. Others can do it as well. And then you send in a highlight videotape of yourself. And back then they took the top 10 videos. And that was half of your score back then, was where you placed in your video. And so my first time to do it, I won the summer competition, got invited, made my video, submitted it, and got a letter back. I believe it was November 4th when I got the letter back, which is my birthday, so it was perfect, that we had qualified tied for 8th. And so at that point, I had become the first ever mascot from Alabama to qualify for nationals. So really, really cool opportunity there to be the first one to go. There's more to the story if you want me to keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. So back then, Jamie, you know this, we didn't have YouTube. So there was no way to let me just go look and see what other mascots do and what are some other ideas. Let me cheat a little bit and see if I can get creative by borrowing what other people have done. You really couldn't do that. So whatever you did, you really just made up and hoped it was right. So not having any experience in going to watch a mascot nationals competition, I had no idea what it was like to make a skit and execute the skit there. So we were really just winging it and hoping we did the best we could. So we made a skit and felt that we had done a really good job with it. And I say we because it's a team effort. I had myself and a couple of guys with me, Jason Watley, who also shared the varsity role with me, and Brian Birdwell, who was our JV guy. And they certainly helped in making the skit, building the props. It was a team effort. I was the guy that competed it, but we always said that we as a team were what did it. And so we made the skit, went down there for nationals. I was as nervous as it could be, and did the routine. And I can vividly remember being on stage, and then here's all the 10 mascots on stage that were competing this year, and we're up there just kind of goofing off, and everybody's trying to see who can get more spotlight than the other as they're putting the trophies together and getting everything ready. And they said, now it's time for the awards. And man, I'm going to tell you what, I'm extremely competitive, and I did not want to come in last. Now look, I have no idea if I'm last place worthy or not, to be honest, because I didn't know really how to judge what I did. And so they say in 10th place, and I squinched up tight, like, please don't be last. Please don't be last. And they call whatever college was in 10th place. And so I kind of sighed a little bit of relief, like, okay, well, that's cool. They call 9th place, and it's not me. And they call 8th place, and it's not me. And at that point, once they had done 10, 9, and 8, and I knew at that point that not only had I went backwards, but I had at least held my own, and now I could validate that I'd beaten someone, at least one mascot I had beaten while I was there. I felt really confident about everything. You know, I was like, okay, well, we're going to be all right. We're going to do good. And they call 7th, and it's not me. And they call 6th place, and it's not me. Now, let me say that we had made a goal, my team, my coach, and I, that we wanted to finish in the top 5 this year because we knew that we qualified tied for 8th. And being tied for 8th, that was half of your score, how you qualified. And so the chances of moving up very high probably were slim because of that. And so if we could get in the top 5 this year, we could now have watched these mascot competitions and go back and then develop a really solid plan for how we would do this the following year and go win it. So we get to the top 5, and they say in 5th place from Penn State University, the Nittany Lion. I'm like, oh, wow, all right. Man, we made a top 4. That's awesome. And they say in 4th place from the University of Minnesota, Goldie the Gopher. And I'm like, well, this is awesome. Here we are, top 3. Let's go. This is great. Now I'm feeling great because we set a goal. We hit it. I can say that we're in the top 3 in the nation. Dude, I'm on cloud 9. Everything is perfect for me at this point, right? Life is good. And in 3rd place from the University of Tennessee, Smokey. And here we are in the final 2. And I'm going to tell you what, all of a sudden a new level of adrenaline sinks in because you start thinking in the back of your mind, could I actually win? Like, is this possible? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, all right, so we're in the top 2. I wonder who's left. And I look over to my left, and guess what mascot is standing beside me?
Oh, I know. I know
well,
who it is.
Usually when I tell this story, people rush to answer this question because if you're familiar with the University of Alabama, there is oil and water. If we're the oil, Auburn is the water. We just don't mix. And so sure enough, Albee is standing beside me. Now let me tell you about Albee. Albee had won this competition like 5 or 6 years in a row going into this competition and had qualified first. And my joy and excitement of, man, we're in the top 2 quickly changed to this sucks. Because I can see myself going back to Tuscaloosa and my buddy is going, man, how'd you do? How'd you do? Yeah, I came in 2nd. Oh, that's awesome. Who won? Albee won. Oh, you stink, man. You let Auburn beat you? Like, I could just see that this whole accomplishment was going to be nullified because Albee. And so now I'm getting disappointed. Like, I went through such an emotional roller coaster in about 10 seconds, 15 seconds of, look over and see Albee, and I'm like, oh, no way. Of course, I know mathematically it seems impossible at this point because I'm the guy who's tied for 8th. That's 50% of my score. He's the guy that came in first, and that's 50% of his score. And they say, and in 2nd place from Auburn University, Albee, and the 1998 national champion from the University of Alabama, Big Al. So that was an awesome experience for me to do that. They made a big deal out of it at the university, gave us championship ring. They put it. We have a museum there called the Paul Bear Bryant Museum. Put my ring, my picture, trophy in the museum for several years. It was really cool. I was able to take my daughter to that museum during one of the football games and go in there and show her that's her dad. Her dad did that. And, so really a cool opportunity, man. It was good stuff.
Well, now, I may be mistaken on this, but I think at one time, were you the only Alabama Spirit squad to win a national title?
At one point, yes. The cheerleaders have pulled off 2 more since that time.
Gotcha.
But up until recently, as a matter of fact, in 1998, I believe that Big Al was the only athletic team, if you will, to win a national title in anything. I think we were the only championship in any sport in 98.
Now, one thing people don't realize is you talked about qualifying for nationals. You have to have your video, which is, I think it's a 2-minute video, 2-minute highlight tape, and there's really a lot. You really have to up the ante in that. And sometimes mascots would take that to another level. What did you guys do that season to try to up the ante on that video?
Well, let me tell you the following season. The story for that's probably a little bit better because on the first one, we weren't trying to up any ante. We really didn't know what we were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were a squirrel that found a nut, to be honest. But on the next season, we knew what we had to do. So my roommate and I were sitting in my apartment one day, one evening, and we're watching television. And there was a show, and I don't know if you're familiar with WCW wrestling. It used to come on. It's now partnered with the WWE wrestling, but, you know, all the professional, the Hulk Hogan stuff and all that, right? Are you familiar with all that?
Oh, absolutely.
So most mascots are. So, as a matter of fact, it was probably the largest source of all my material came from those guys. So there was a wrestling show called WCW Thursday Night Thunder, and this would have been sometime in 1998, whenever this happened. I guess it probably would have been the spring or the summer of 98, somewhere in those time frames. But so anyway, we're watching wrestling, and it's a 2-hour show. And the main event is a guy named Diamond Dallas Page, if you're familiar with him. He's wrestling a guy named Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. And so my roommate and I have watched an hour of this show. Now, let me say that at this time, there was a really cool group that was in wrestling called the NWO. And all the college kids, high school kids, had T-shirts that were black that had the white NWO logo on them. We were all wearing them. We were all into the NWO. And so we had a size 4X NWO T-shirt made for Big Al. And I would wear it to football games, and, you know, all the guys, you know, would love it. And I want to get a picture made with Big Al in his NWO shirt. I look at my roommate, and I said, you know what would be really cool? What if Big Al showed up to this event? I said, think about it. It's in Birmingham, so it's an hour away from us in Tuscaloosa. That's our people. Birmingham people traditionally are mostly Alabama fans. But certainly, let me go ahead and say probably going to a wrestling match, probably most of those were Alabama fans. Not only that, but we could calculate that at a wrestling event, there was the opportunity for those people to be drinking alcohol, which would make them much louder than normal. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of events that I got to do in the Big Al costume while the event was going on that people could be drinking. So I was calculating that they would just be a little more loud than normal, a little more ecstatic than normal to see Big Al. So I said, you know what? One of the things we get scored on with our video is crowd reaction and crowd footage. And so I'm thinking that we can really get some crowd participation points if we show up at this wrestling event wearing our NWO shirt. You know, who knows what could happen? We may just catch the people as they're leaving, going out to their cars and just wanting to pile on Big Al and scream and yell. But it sure would be fun. What if we took off and went there and just see what we could do? What if we did it? My roommate says, so you're saying, do you want to try to go and break in the wrestling match? I really don't know what's going to happen. Let's just see. So we grabbed the Big Al costume, and back then you didn't have cell phone, so we had to grab a camcorder. You remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
We grabbed the video camera, and we take off top speed to Birmingham. Now, as we're on the way to Birmingham, and all I know is when we left, there was a little less than an hour to go in the show. We know that main event that's going on, who it is. We don't know if there's a tape delay, so maybe are they running 5-10 minutes early. We don't know all that. We're just trying to see what can happen. As we start getting close to Birmingham, I'm getting excited. Let me tell you, I'm driving to Birmingham wearing the Big Al costume from neck down and the Big Al head sitting in the back seat. So just imagine the people as I'm driving by wearing Big Al costume from neck down, flying by them in my little red Honda Prelude. And so as I pull up to the BJCC Arena, which is the big arena in Birmingham, Alabama, like any arena, the worst thing about going to any event is parking, always, right? And so as I pull up and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do about a parking spot, how am I going to get close, there is a metered parking spot at the front door of the arena. There's these huge steps in front of the arena and a metered parking spot right at the base of those. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, this isn't meant to be. So I pull in. I tell my roommate, dude, let's do it. Let's go. So I get out of the car, and I put the Big Al head on. My buddy gets the video camera. And as we look up these steps, I'm going to tell you, it sounds like a rock concert is going on inside this arena. I mean, they're going nuts. The volume is crazy, right? So I go running up these stairs full of adrenaline. My buddy's chasing the video camera. We get up to the door, and I grab the door to open it, and it's locked. And all I can hear is the crowd blowing the roof off this place inside. So as I'm sitting there like, well, what do I do now? Security comes to the door. Security opens the door, apologizes to me because he thinks I'm part of the show, and shows me how to get backstage. Big Al, you need to go back this way, right here where you're supposed to go. So I begin making my way backstage. As I get down towards the floor, I can see, and if you've ever been to a wrestling match, just imagine that probably an eighth, a fourth, somewhere between there of the arena, if it's a bowl arena, is blocked by a curtain. And behind this curtain is backstage, if you will. On the front side of the curtain is a big stage with a ramp going down the middle of it with a wrestling ring at the foot of the ramp. And all the people are circled around the wrestling ring. So I'm coming from behind this curtain, and I see these stairs. And I can look in the ring, and I see Diamond Dallas Page. And he's got his shirt off. He's leaning against the ropes. They're playing his music. Now, I knew his music because I watched the show. And I'm like, well, it's not over. Or it's over, I'm sorry. If it's over, it won't hurt anything. So I go up these stairs, walk through this curtain, and step out on stage. And when I step out on stage, the crowd goes nuts. Now, let me say, while I was Big Al, I had David Hobbs and Mark Gottfried were the basketball coaches at Alabama while I was there. Neither of them really pushed the envelope on having a very loud home court environment. It was usually very dull. Now, with Avery Johnson, it's crazy how loud it's gotten, how much fun it is at an Alabama basketball game. But back then, not so much. So I had never experienced anything like this indoors. Bryant-Denny Stadium and Legion Field are crazy loud, but they're open air. So, the sound goes up. Here, everything was closed in, and so when that crowd yelled, it vibrated my costume. I've never felt anything like it. And so I'm living a childhood dream, Jamie. This was so much fun just to stand up there. Well, what do you do now? Because here's Diamond Dallas Page in the ring, and I'm up on the stage. What are you supposed to do? Let me say this. One thing I learned about wearing the Big Al costume, or maybe not even wearing it, just having it with me, it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. There were a lot of things that I was able to do that the normal person could not, because either I had the costume on or with me. So I was really used to just doing whatever you wanted to do whenever you wanted to do it. And so I said, you know what, let's go for it. So I take off running down the ramp. As I do, fireworks go off. Music starts playing. The match wasn't over. It was just starting. So here on live national TV is Diamond Dallas Page and Big Al running to the ring. I get to the ring, and I point to Diamond Dallas Page, who at this time is talking to the referee. And I learned through this process that the referee is in control of everything with a wrestling match. That he's got on a microphone and a headset, and he's dictating what's happening at all times. So Diamond Dallas Page was trying to talk to the referee, but clearly this was not part of the script. What's going on here? Nobody told me about an elephant getting in the ring. What's happening? I get to the ring. I'm on the floor. He's up in the ring, and I point to him. Jamie, did you watch wrestling at all? Were you a fan?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what the name of the move was that Diamond Dallas Page did?
The Diamond Cutter.
The Diamond Cutter, that's right. Do you remember when he wanted to let the crowd know he was about to do a Diamond Cutter, what he did?
He just raised his arms up in the air.
Yes, and made a triangle.
Right.
That's right. And then he would throw his hands down, and the crowd would yell the word bang with him. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. All right. So I get up to the ring, and I point to him. And then I hold both of my arms out. Now, listen, inside the Big Al head, think about this. There's a trunk that's right in front of your face because you're wearing a football helmet with a big fiberglass shell around it. So there's a big elephant trunk right where your eyes are. So if you're inside the Big Al costume, you are looking to the left and the right at all times. So when Big Al walks, he swings his trunk backwards and forwards. It makes the elephant come alive with the trunk moving, the ears moving. But it's also so you can see what's in front of you. So I'm looking to both sides of me, and as I'm holding my arms out, think about just holding your arms as wide as you can, and then raising them up slowly to make a triangle in the air. I look, and the whole arena, this arena holds 17,000 people. All 17,000 people are doing this with me in unison, and I am loving it. I get my hands up high, and I throw them down, and the crowd yells the word bang! And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the best feeling ever. So at this point, the crowd breaks into yelling, "Roll Tide." So just imagine I have hijacked this wrestling match, and this crowd is yelling, "Roll Tide, Roll Tide." So I'm not supposed to quit now, right? I've got the fans behind me. So I do a lap around the ring, and I get to the steps, and I crawl up in the ring with Diamond Dallas Page. Now, just imagine this, Jamie. Do you remember Hulk Hogan?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he would get into a ring and point to one side of the crowd and then kind of do his arm like in a circle and his hand go up to his ear to get them to yell?
Right.
So that is totally what I'm doing right here. I'm pointing to this side of the crowd, doing a little circle with my hand, putting it to my ear, and they're screaming. And then I point to this part of the crowd, do the same thing, and they're screaming. I point to this part of the crowd, same thing, they're screaming. And they're blowing the roof off the place, man. It was nuts how loud these people were participating with me. Well, I'm doing that for, it seemed like a long time, but really was about 5-10 seconds. And then next thing I know, I'm face first down on the mat. And as I'm down on the mat, my arms get yanked behind me. It's security. And they're telling me, "You're going to jail, buddy. You're going straight to jail." Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, you can't take me to jail. I'm Big Al. Well, they didn't really care about that. So they towed me out of the ring, treated me like I'm a criminal. The whole crowd starts booing. And let me say, they carry me back to the back of the arena where there's this little closet that is the jail cell. The crowd booed and did not stop booing the whole main event. They kept the boo up the entire main event on TV. Well, so anyway, I'm kind of still high from everything, if you will. And as I get to the closet, my roommate is in this closet crying. And as I go inside the closet, he's like, "Dude, we're going to jail. We're going to jail." I'm like, no way. Then I start thinking about it. And maybe are we? Well, here's something we didn't know. We didn't know that the previous night they had a match in Atlanta, and Ric Flair had a security threat against him. And so they had doubled up security in Birmingham because of this security threat. And so I guess security didn't work because a kid in an elephant suit broke in and made it all the way in the ring without anybody stopping him, right? So Ric Flair came over and cussed me out, man. Laid into me, cussed me out. There was a guy named Doug Dillinger that played the role on TV as director of security. He was the real legitimate director of security. And he was very upset with me, let me know how stupid I was and what I had done. And they wanted to know, why did I do this? And I told them, I was the current national champion mascot. We were trying to make a highlight video and thought this would be good and thought they would enjoy it, thought the crowd would enjoy it. And they said clearly they did not enjoy it. And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Did you hear the crowd? They went nuts. They were crazy loud." And they told me, "Son, we don't need any help making crowds yell. We make that happen every night all across the world. We don't need some college kid to come show us how to make the crowd yell." I said, "Okay, but did you hear them?" They went nuts. So anyway, long story short, there was a warrant out for my arrest. They had at WCW Wrestling Place. They placed a lawsuit on the University of Alabama, on the University of Alabama Athletic Department, on the University of Alabama Cheerleading Department, on my coach. I mean, they were throwing it at anybody that they could because they were very angry. So what I learned is there was a potential break in FCC violations because it was not scripted to have the mascot, be on TV. And so there was a potential $500,000 fine that WCW could be looking at if FCC wanted to call it. So long story short, I had to track down my coach, get her to verify that I really was the real mascot. I wasn't just some kid with an elephant suit. And to get out of everything, I had to have a letter of apology signed and faxed back to WCW Wrestling by noon the next day. And so I had to go around to everybody who's anybody in the athletic department and get them to sign off, agreeing that we would not speak to media about it for a year, that we would never again be allowed to participate or attend any WCW sanctioned events. I mean, they were very serious about what they wanted to happen. So just imagine college kid in the elephant suit going around to these guys in charge of the athletic department and getting my lectures. I went to the guy that's the attorney for the athletic department and got a 2-hour lecture on why this was the dumbest thing I could have ever done for me personally and for the University of Alabama athletic department. And I went to who was our athletic director at the time, Mel Moore, and he told me, he said, "Shane, do you realize how this can be used in recruiting?" He said, "Recruiting is the lifeline of what we do." He said, "Just imagine this. Just imagine right now that there's one of our competitive coaches sitting in some kid's house in his living room with Mom. And the mom's on the fence. Should she go to Alabama? Should she go to Southern Miss? And the Southern Miss coach says, you know what? Why would you send your kid to Alabama? They can't even control the mascot. He got arrested the other day. Why do you want to send your kid to a place they have no control? He said, they'll use anything to try to get an advantage to recruit somebody. I said, well, I didn't think about that. I'm sorry. So my last stop was I had to go to the football coach, Mike DeVos, and get him to sign off on that we would not attend any other events, and go in his office. And he said, Shane, I'm sure you've heard all about this, and everybody's talked to you, and they've given you the story on what a bad idea this was, and it's been a rough day for you. I said, yes, sir, this one's been tough. He says, well, I want to give you my opinion. I said, okay. And so I sat down and I embraced for everything. He starts talking about recruiting and kind of echoes what Coach Ward said about recruiting. And yes, sir, I understand. He goes, so here's what I think, man. I said, all right. He goes, I think it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. He goes, I was actually watching it, and I saw you. He goes, I think it's going to be great for recruiting. I think the kids are going to see it. It's very cool. I thought it was awesome. So anyway, I ended up getting out of that with a very heavy slap on the wrist. My penalty, if you will, was I had to give the Big Al costume to the university, and I had to go check it out. I couldn't keep it with me. And so anytime there was a Big Al appearance, I had to go check out the costume from the athletic department. So that was kind of a funny ending to that. I will tell you that almost a year to the day later, I was doing a photo shoot for ESPN, the magazine, and they had myself and the Stanford Cardinal and the Penn State Nittany Lion, Herbie Husker from Nebraska, the Miami Ibis, and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, all doing a photo shoot for ESPN, the magazine. And I walked in, and I knew the Penn State Lion because we had competed against each other. And he says, hey, Big Al, what's up, man? Listen, was that real or was that fake? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, dude, I watched you like a while back on TV at a wrestling match and saw you there, and then it looked like you got arrested. Like, did you really get arrested? And so I said, yeah. And before I could tell the story, the Stanford Tree goes, wait, I saw that on WCW? Like, that was real? You really got arrested? And I said, wait a minute. The Stanford Tree watches WCW wrestling? I thought you guys were Stanford, like you were way above that, So anyway, that's kind of how that story ended up there.
Well, in the word, if you're a mascot that's worth a damn, you've had some kind of run-in with the law in some capacity. And like the late, great president of Southern Miss said, his name was Horace Fleming, he told me after not an incident on that large of a scale, but he says, if you don't get in trouble sometimes, you really aren't trying. And
that's right.
That definitely applies to this craft.
Well, Jamie, I will tell you this. There's no doubt about the truth to what you said, because I totally felt that at football games, my last couple of years to be Big Al, that if I wasn't pushing the envelope, I wasn't a fun mascot to watch. And so I actually embraced getting in trouble in the mascot suit, because that meant that I was doing something that was really edgy, something that was entertaining to watch. I didn't just want to be the mascot that walked up and down the sidelines and grabbed cheerleaders' pom-poms and hit them in the megaphone. I really wanted to be something that could be real comic relief during the game, or something that even maybe took attention from the game. I actually got in trouble during a basketball game. Mark Godfrey was our coach. During the game, Mark Godfrey sent one of the assistant coaches over to me and said, Coach Godfrey wants you to quit. His basketball team is watching you, and they're not watching the game, and he's having to get their attention off of you. And so I thought that was pretty telling. I said, well, tell them to put a better product on the field, and they'll all watch. On the basketball court, and they'll all watch. So anyway, no doubt about it, man. I think that's just part of that. You've got to love that all eyes on me mentality when you're a mascot, if you want to be a good one.
And one of the things like we talked about earlier, one of the ways you do that, and especially you did this in the 90s, were when you got into fights with other mascots, and you had a pretty memorable experience with the mascot from Mississippi State.
I did, man. I did. So we're playing Mississippi State, and I forget the year. I want to say this was probably 99, I think. We're playing in Tuscaloosa, and, man, there was this storm that came out of nowhere. I don't think it was expected at all, and so the game is getting ready to kick off. It may have even kicked off. It might have even started. I don't remember. But all of a sudden, the storm came in, and lightning hit right beside the stadium. And so they evacuated the stadium, and they told everybody to get out, and they suspended the game. And so in Bryant-Denny Stadium, there's a room that's for cheerleaders and mascots. So we all go in this room and just kind of wait it out. So this rain shower hits for probably a heavy 20, 30 minutes, and it was heavy rain, and everybody just, I mean, it was immediate out of nowhere, so everybody just kind of left everything where it was and ran for cover. So then probably an hour and a half later, they've let everybody come back into the stadium. And so the football players are back on the field, and they're warming back up again and getting ready to play. So Mississippi State cheerleaders, at this time, they had white flags with maroon MSU logos on them. And they had left at least one out in this rain, and it had gotten soaked. So what they had done was they had unrolled it over on their side of the field. They had unrolled it. Here's this big white flag with a maroon MSU right in the center of it that was unrolled and laying, trying to dry out on the field. Now, here I am in the mascot costume. The crowd is starting to fill back in the stadium, and clearly they're bored at this point because they've already been through the drama of the pomp and circumstance of the teams running on the field and the kickoff, and then all of a sudden the downer of being evacuated out of the field, and it's rainy and it was just gross. You know what I mean? So there wasn't a whole lot of energy in the stadium at this point. And so I'm walking around and I see this flag, and my first thought was, the field is so muddy and so wet. Here's this white flag. This will be an awesome slip and slide. So I take off running and I jump on this flag and try to slide on my feet. Of course, I bust my rear end, but the mud is flying all over this flag. Then I get up and go running and do a head first dive on this flag and slide all over it. And the crowd is dying laughing. And I can see the men watching that are laughing going, that guy's nuts, I love it. And I could hear the women going, oh no, he's going to get in trouble. Like you could feel that vibe, you know what I mean? And so, no doubt, man, this white flag is getting mud all over it, right? So I get done slip and slide on this flag and get them kind of walk away. And I'm walking away a little cocky. That's right, I just did that. That's one for the books right there. I need to remember that. And then all of a sudden, I was telling you earlier, the Big Al head is a football helmet that has metal posts inside of it that are connected to a fiberglass shell. So if somebody hits you in the head, it doesn't hurt. It's just really loud. You know what I mean? And so all of a sudden, the loudest boom I had ever heard hits my head. And I turn around, and Bully, the bulldog from Mississippi State, had taken that flag and rolled it up and reared back and hit me in the head with that flagpole. So I turn around and look, and there's Bully, the bulldog, holding this flag, had just hit me in the head. What are you supposed to do? We're in Tuscaloosa. We're not in Starkville. We're in Tuscaloosa. And the bulldog has just picked up a flagpole and walloped me over the head with it. Good. I mean, he did a good job. So I did what I felt like I was supposed to do. And I took off running directly at him, and I speared him, laid right into his gut and folded him up, right? He drops the flagpole. I tackle him down on the ground. I take his bulldog head, and I rip it off of his head, and I throw it in the air, and I've got his head in a headlock, and I just start beating his head. I'm just throwing punches on him. So you just kind of look at it. I'm laying on top of him on the ground. The Bully bulldog head has rolled probably 10 feet away from us, and I've got him in a headlock with my left arm, and my right arm is punching him in the face over and over and over. I get up, and the football players that are kind of on the sidelines that were, had finished their warm-up are looking, and they're cheering me on. Get him, Big Al, get him. And so for me, that was so cool, because I'm here to watch them, and they in turn were now watching me. So that was really, it fired me up. So I wasn't finished. And so when I hear these guys are on it, we were right beside one of their benches that they have. I jump on the bench, and as Bully is getting up, he went and put his head on, and as he's getting up, no kidding, I jump up and I lay right into him and knock him right back down face first, right? Everybody's laughing. I get up, kind of walk off like in a victory walk. Well, he just walks right by me very fast, walks right by me and goes to the cheerleading room that we have where we have drinks and we have snacks. And if you need to go, just take your head off for a minute and cool down, whatever. He goes there. So I just continue walking around the field doing my thing. We get to halftime, and I go walking in the cheerleading room, mascot room, and my coach grabs me up, and if she could have choked me, I think she would have. And she said, I want you to look at what you did to this bulldog. And here's the Mississippi State bulldog guy laying back. He's got cotton in one of his nostrils. He's got an ice pack on his eye. He's got blood on his face coming out the side of his mouth. She's like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And I said, listen, that guy hit me with a flagpole. What was I supposed to do? She was, Shane, you can't fight every mascot. You just can't do this every time. So, long story short, we had to write a letter of apology to Mississippi State University stating that we would not beat up Bully the Bulldog again. And I'll say this, I enjoyed writing that letter.
Did you just have like a letter on file that you just printed off and signed and sent it to wherever you needed it to go?
You know what, I did not, but probably would have been a wise investment.
All right, so your final game at Alabama was the Orange Bowl in 2000. What went down at the Orange Bowl?
Well, I tell you what, certainly to think about, number one, just being able to witness Tom Brady in person, playing Michigan. You know, Tom Brady's amazing, but who knew back then that Tom Brady was going to be this superstar NFL player that he is today? Nobody knew that. But we ended up losing the game by 1 point. We missed an extra point at the end of the game to tie the game to take it in overtime. And we missed it and lost the game. I think, no kidding, I think it was like 13 seconds left or something that we missed this extra point. But so we lost the game, but probably the thing that for me was the most memorable was the sponsor of the Orange Bowl that year was the game Pokemon. Are you familiar with that game?
Oh,
Pokemon,
yeah.
when it came out?
Oh, yeah.
Right, so it had a character that was very significant. They kind of used a lot in their marketing, a guy named Pikachu that was yellow. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So before the game starts, we have the marketing people for the Orange Bowl. Hey, Big Al, we need you over here. Need to talk to you. I said, sure. So go walk over in here. I'm in this room with a couple people, and they're like, okay, so the second time out of the second quarter, what we're going to do is the TV camera is going to go down to the tunnel, and we're going to bring up the Pokemon logo on the screen, TV-wise, so commercial, and it's going to say the 2000 Orange Bowl brought to you by Pokemon. Pokemon can't catch them, or whatever the tagline was. And said we're going to have about 10 seconds as we fade into commercial. Then we'll have the Pokemon logo on screen. And what we want happening is Pikachu is going to run out the tunnel, and then we want you and the Orange Bowl mascot, because Michigan does not have a costume mascot. So we want you and the Orange Bowl mascot, which is a big orange, we want you to chase him out of the tunnel. And so while we've got this logo on, we're going to have the camera on you as you're running across chasing Pikachu, and then we'll go to commercial break. I said, okay, that's cool. What do I do if I catch him? They said, no, you're not supposed to catch him. That's the thing. You don't catch him. And I said, right, sure, but what do I do if I catch him? He said, no. That's the whole thing about Pokemon is you can't catch them. I said, right, no, I get that. But, I mean, look, you can't see these costumes. What do you want me to do if I catch them? And this guy just pipes up out of nowhere. That's one of the marketing guys. He says, son, listen, the guy that's in the Pikachu costume runs track for the University of South Florida. You're not going to catch him. And I said, oh, okay. So first time out of second quarter hits, my coach comes over to me. She says, hey, I need you to, don't forget, you've got to go back there and get in that tunnel. I said, oh, yeah, I'm on the way. I walk over to all the guy cheerleaders, and I tell them, y'all huddle up around me and hide me. They said, for what? I said, y'all just watch. Just everybody stand around me, just hide me. So they have no idea what's going on. And really, Jamie, I don't either. I really don't know yet what I'm about to do. Because it was my last football game in Alabama, and I really wanted to do something memorable. I wanted to be, what if somebody from Michigan was breaking down the sidelines to score, and I stepped out on the field, tackled him, and saved the touchdown. You know, I'd probably get kicked out of college, but I'd be in the history books forever. You know, I was kind of thinking about doing something like that. So I'm at about the 11-yard line, and I'm down on my hands and knees, kind of in a pose that a track person gets in before they run. And so sure enough, the second timeout hits for the second quarter, and my adrenaline is at an all-time high. And just as planned, here comes Pikachu running out of the tunnel, and right behind him is the orange. And as they're running, I kind of get a feel for the speed of Pikachu, and I take off running across the field. So here I come from the sidelines of the 11-yard line as Pikachu has run out of the tunnel, running directly to midfield. So you can see what's about to happen here. I'm running as fast as I can, and Pikachu has no idea what's about to happen. And I'm running. Right as I get to him, I get down, and I do the best form tackle that I could ever do, maybe that you've ever seen any football player do. I get down and hit him with my right shoulder, pick him up, carry him 3 steps, and drive him into the ground. The hit was so hard that his head goes flying in the air and just does several loops in the air and goes rolling to the side. So the orange just kind of stops. Like, what in the world? So I get over him and kind of spread my legs and stand over him. And if you follow Degeneration X from the WWE back in the day, they had a little X move that they would make right in front of their waist with their hands. I get over and look down at him and give him the X that they would do. And then I look up in the crowd at my girlfriend, who later became my wife. But I look at her, she's a majorette at Alabama, and I point to her kind of like, look at your boy, look what he did. And I can see my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, drop her head down like, oh, my God, I cannot believe you did this. Well, I walk off the field like, that's right, I did that. I just laid Pikachu out in front. And the crowd went nuts. I mean, the crowd, you can just imagine, just to put yourself in that situation that Pikachu comes running out on the field, and all of a sudden, one of the other mascots just goes and takes him out midfield. You can imagine the roar that would have happened there, right? It was exactly how it was. So I go walking back. My coach is like, what are you doing? And I said, wasn't that awesome? She said, Shane, that's the sponsor of the Orange Bowl. I said, I know. Wasn't it great? She goes, no. That's the sponsor of the Orange Bowl. I said, I know. Isn't that awesome? Shane, they paid millions of dollars to be the sponsor of, you just tackled the sponsor that paid millions of dollars of the Orange. Shane, do you understand what you've done? And I was kind of like, you put it in that terminology. I do think about that. She goes, you've totally ruined their sponsorship, Shane. What are you thinking? So certainly at the end of the game, we have some PR people, marketing people from Pokemon come over and say, we want to talk to the guy in the elephant costume. And so my coach gladly, hands me up to him like, here you go. This is him. Get him. And they said, we should be very angry with you right now. And I said, really? They said, oh, yeah, we sure should. They said, but however, we got so much buzz from people talking about our mascot getting tackled by you that we couldn't have bought that kind of publicity. So thank you very much. Although we should be mad, we made our money back 10 times. So thank you for that. So it ended up working out pretty good that I laid out Pikachu in midfield at the Orange Bowl.
Did you say I choose you right before you did it?
No, I did not. No, pretty much what I was thinking was, oh my God, I'm about to do this. I'm about to do this.
Well, one thing that, civilians don't realize is that if you can't put like a corporate mascot into the, I guess you say the territory of the realm of a fully legit college mascot without expecting something like that to happen.
They have no chance at survival. None.
No, none at all.
That's right.
And you mentioned your wife. You ended up marrying her, and I met her at one of the games when Southern Miss was playing Alabama. That's and right. I've seen her, and I've seen you. So I'm assuming you guys met while you were in costume.
There's no doubt about it, man. I put the chase on her big time and tried to play the game of, making her wonder about the guy in the elephant suit. It's funny because when I first started really flirting with her, it was no doubt I was in the Big Al costume. And she had a boyfriend of 3.5 years, and I don't know that she had any intentions of looking elsewhere. And I would flirt with her like crazy in the Big Al costume. And his buddies would tell him, dude, you better watch out for Big Al. He just continues to flirt with Courtney over and over. And he's like, it's just Big Al. That's what he does. That's what he does. No, they were right. I was working, man. I was working like it was my job to meet this little blonde-headed girl and figure out how to make her mine. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it worked out really good for us. We've had a lot of fun stories to share in the process of doing pep rallies together and football games together, things like that. It really worked out well. And I'll tell you what, no doubt that wearing that little gray carpet that we call an elephant, it helped a guy like me step way out of his league and outkick the coverage.
You even wrote a book after graduation called Big Al Behind the Mask.
I did, that's right.
Now, you sold out of it, didn't you?
I did. Well, actually, the first order that we did was 2,500 copies, and we sold out of that, I think it was within a month that we sold all of those. And at that point, I self-published it, self-marketed it, and it was really cool because at that point, I had a successful book. It was neat to talk about, neat to do. It was really funny how it came about because I do a lot of speaking engagements and tell these stories, and people always say, man, you need to write a book. These stories are great. You should write a book. And so I started thinking, if I have these kind of stories, I know other guys that wore the Big Al costume have stories like this too. So I reached out to as many former Big Als as I could and said, tell me your best stories. I want to put together a book. And so they did. And so the book is hilarious to hear some of the things that have happened to people in the costume. It's hilarious, a great read. And it's kind of a different spin on Alabama athletics. So when I went to Steve Townsend, Steve is a former sports information director, former athletic director at Alabama. He's written several books for the university. One of his biggest was Tales of the 77 Tide, and he wrote one called Talk of the Tide. And he does a lot of these compilation books, where he's getting old football players, old coaches to tell their side of the story and what happened. His books are great. They're such fun to read. And so I reached out to him and said, look, I want to write a book about Big Al. He wasn't really impressed. He's like, I don't see that being a big deal. And I said, let me tell you some of these stories, and I'll gauge what you think. So I sat down with him for hours telling these stories. And then there was a video that I have, and the video is highlighted by several fights that I got into with other mascots. And it was several different videos that we did for nationals, trying to put the compilations together of different years, and I would have fights in between. And so he says, Shane, don't take this the wrong way, but the way you make money with a book is you need to have some type of celebrity. He said, and you're really not. He said, you're just a kid that wore the Big Al suit. He said, so maybe could we bring Gene Stallings in, maybe some of the former players that you're friends with, that you've got some stories with them. Maybe they could sign books, because, look, book signings are where it's at. That's how you make money. And I said, no. I said, what I was thinking was that book signings, we would just bring Big Al and let you get your book autographed by Big Al, get your picture made with him when you buy it. He says, that's genius. Let's do it. And so we set up with the current Big Al at that time to go on a book signing circuit with us. And he would show up, and we'd have a long line of people that were waiting to get their book and get their picture made with Big Al. It was crazy. I never experienced anything like it. I can say that I had a successful one-book deal that worked out really well for me.
I think after this, you're going to have to put it back up online or something.
Okay.
You're going to have to do a digital copy.
Maybe so. Maybe it needs that. It'd be good to refresh it up a little bit.
Well, what are you up to now? What do you have going on now?
Man, I am currently the Director of Commercial Sales and Marketing for ServPro over in Birmingham, Alabama. So what we do is we take care of your building in case you have fire damage, water damage, sewage damage, biohazard damage, anything that's bad in your facility. You call us and we get a team out there immediately, clean it up so that you can keep your business back up and running. So it's a great place to work, great people. It's amazing the passion they have just to take care of people. So it's good to be a part of their group for sure. You're
obviously a huge Alabama fan.
Yes.
You have to be really pleased with how the past few years have gone for the Crimson Tide.
I'm jealous that I didn't get to be a part of it in the costume.
Right.
I mean, listen, the 4 years that I was in the costume, I had Gene Stallings last year, so we went to the Outback Bowl that year and played Michigan. The following year was Mike Dubos's first year, and we didn't go to a bowl at all. The next year was Mike Dubos's second year. We didn't go to a bowl. And then my last year, we went to the Orange Bowl as the SEC champion. So I got the ebb and flow of what it was like to be average, for sure.
Well, Shane, man, it's been incredible catching up with you. I think fans of anybody that's a college football fan is going to enjoy this episode. I mean, really terrific to have you on. Good to catch up, man. And you take care of yourself, man. Keep in touch.
Hey, man, it was great to talk to you. It's awesome to watch your success, and man, I can't wait to go watch some more stand-up of you, man. You're awesome on stage, and I can't wait to get a big crowd to come watch you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Sharpe. That was terrific. It's always good to share stories with the guys. Really good to catch up with Shane. It's been a while, but that was amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Be sure you follow him on Twitter, Shane Sharpe, at S Sharpe, that's Sharpe with an E, number 1. That's at SSHARPE1. You can follow me on Twitter at Jamie_Arrington, or you can follow this podcast at Arring It Out. That's at ARRINGITOUT. On Facebook, Jamie Arrington, and Arring It Out as well. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Give us a rating. We're on iTunes, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Google Play, so keep up with us. Show us some love if you enjoy the show, and keep up with us, because we've got some amazing guests coming up. All right, my next comedy show is going to be Thursday, July the 28th, if you're in the vicinity, this is in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So if you're anywhere in the region, you feel like coming over, come out and check the show out. It's going to be amazing. We've got Frank Caliendo at the Sanger Theater in Hattiesburg. If you don't know who Frank Caliendo is, you've probably seen him on Sundays on either Fox or now ESPN. He does all the impressions. He does the John Madden, the John Gruden, among others. So going to be an amazing show. Thursday, July the 28th at the Sanger Theater in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Frank Caliendo, 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $50. The VIP seats are sold out, but we still have tickets to the show. They're going fast, $50. You can purchase those at laughs4life.com. That's laughs, the number 4, life.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you really enjoyed it. We will see you next week with another amazing episode of Airing It Out.